it's a double negotiation, basically, where both sides think they have the right answer, and both sides are appropriately concerned, right? They're both.
What are some maybe tips on the types of talent that you're kind of looking for, or that you've hired, that you've been excited about? How are you feeling there?
I think there are a few things. One is that the availability of talent for startups now is completely different than when I started PBXL, or even before that, I started some of the other stuff I was doing, where no one was interested in working with you, essentially. It was like, no. And even if you found someone who might have been, then someone in their family was opposed to you because you were high risk or whatever. That's started to change, particularly as a successful founder. You'll say, oh, well, okay, there might be some upside here. This is not, I kind of understand how that might work, right? So that's a definite positive change. What I've always believed in hiring is trying to figure out if the role is for potential or for need or for experience, really, because those are typically the trade-offs, right? And because people talk about, oh, well, I need someone who hit the ground running on day one. Well, good, then hire them 3 months early. And that's, because that doesn't exist.
I cannot count the amount of times.
Right, and maybe it's an overused cliche, but my view, and this is also why I wouldn't be interested in someone who's job hopped like Silicon Valley folks tend to, where it's like, oh, you've been there a year. Well, I've probably spent my time getting you up to production speed by the time you've left. And so that's not a good investment for me. And one nice thing about the Japan market is that it doesn't turn over in the same cycles, right? Someone who's worked less than 3 years has gone, that's a little dodgy, and 5 is a very normal kind of thing. But it's kind of a give and take though, because when you're looking to hire someone, the market's a lot thinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it turns over at a 10% rate of other markets. So that's one big point. Then another point for us is, there's a word in Japanese, akarui. It means kind of lively and happy and positive, I guess. And that's always a big thing for us. Just historically, we sometimes didn't focus on that as much. But when I look back at the folks who didn't make it very far with us, it was typically the ones whose personalities didn't fit. And I guess maybe to most people it's kind of obvious, oh, you want to hire a happy person, but if you're hiring a happy person, you may be trading off some experience points, right? Where it's like, well, we think they can do that. We're not sure. But I've also never written a job rec that says you have to have done all these things before I'll hire you. It's really more, show me why I should believe you can do these things, and then I'll hire you. So it's I think our view is probably common to a lot of startups, where we have a lot more constraints on what we can do. We can't just say, oh, here's, whatever, $500,000 for RSUs, new graduate. Yeah. And at the same time, though, the ability to work on a small team and have your work really come out and say, oh, hey, that was me. That was me writing that copy. That was me that did that. I think that's a really very positive thing.
I think we just had an article come out about kind of working in a larger company versus working in a startup. And I think that for me, in my perspective, I think that there's a few benefits. And that's definitely one of them, is having in a big company, it's about specialization. And in a smaller team, it's really about, I don't want to say generalization because I feel like that kind of belittles what you're actually doing. I really feel like it's like you develop a skill set that is very flexible. And you kind of have to be able to say yes. Right. A lot more than you're saying no to whatever work is coming your way.
Well, the way, I think similarly about it, I'm not that much of a baseball fan, but the big companies, they have the all pros, right? They've got all the best folks there. That was one of the things that really impressed me about Cisco. The people that I was on the field with at Cisco, I was like, geez, they're all, 300 hitters. These people are great. And so in a startup, you're not going to be able to do that. And so what we look for typically, as well as hiring for can you, there's the want to, and then there's also the flexibility that you're referring to. The way I usually talk about it is we start by building a team of utility infielders, right? No one's actually that good at any specific position on the field. But if you've only
every position.
but they can play. If you've only got 5 people and you need 9 to play baseball, then okay, we can at least kind of cover it. If we run up against one of these all pros, we'll lose. There's no question about it. But that's not how markets work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not okay. It's not immediately adversarial.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Especially it's like when you're offering a specific solution, like it's
Right.
like things move. Yeah.
Well, and it's also the markets that we're going to address and the way we're going to address them. It's they can't pay their all-pro ball player salaries on the kind of deals that we're doing. So there's trade-offs.
That's great. That's a great perspective. You mentioned at the top, like you kind of look at whether you're hiring for potential or experience. Mm-hmm. Generally, do you feel like you do hire for potential, or do you?
Oh, I'm heavily on the potential side.
Cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's because I think what's the right way to say it? There's a minimum level of experience that's appropriate. Sometimes it's just office experience. If you hire someone who's never worked in an office, that transition can be more difficult than anything else. But some of it's also like, okay, have you done X? Have you done Y? Now, if you're bringing in someone who is going to be driving processes through your organization, you're going to lean more strongly towards experience. Because it's like, okay, I need my VP of sales to put in this series of processes that consolidates all the stuff that we've kind of randomly been doing, right?
Exactly.
And it's not, again, back to the utility infielders, right? It's not that we don't know how to run a spreadsheet on this. It's just that we're also doing 4 or 5 other things at the same time, and so priorities bounce around.
Exactly. I think that speaks to kind of the stage 2 of the company, right? Where it's like, I think at a later stage, like you're going from 10 to 100 and those processes need to be implemented, that's when I think, it becomes more of an experience question.
Sure.
Cool. I think that's great. I think there's a lot of great information there. For the second part of the conversation, I kind of want to talk about your experience as a serial entrepreneur, starting businesses in Japan as an American, which I think is a pretty unique experience. So, I mean, I don't really know where to start with this. I don't know if you want to start just at like first company or just maybe overall, like what are maybe even some of the stuff that didn't work out so well versus some of the stuff that you found?
I'm pretty flexible on that, but I think one of the things that we should definitely talk about in the second part of the conversation is, one of the things I found at SignTime, where I've got an offshore Silicon Valley style development team.
Yeah.
And I have a local Japan team.
Yeah.
Sales, customer service, the whole set, in which I'm actually the only native English speaker.
Oh, wow.
And so, kind of bridging that gap and making things run has been an interesting experience for everyone.
Cool. Let's start there, kind of continue on the SignTime, and then maybe we can delve into some of the past for that.
Okay, sounds great.
So for you, I guess, what are some of those, like, the expectations that you found in Japan versus Silicon Valley, and where are the parts that maybe are synergistic and the parts that maybe clash a bit more?
Right. I think that's a fair question. Look, Silicon Valley, if I'm going to default to a view, and I don't want to parody it like the TV show necessarily, but I've talked to a number of companies about coming here, and a couple of times I say, hey, I see about opening the market together. It's, we'll kind of throw something out there in a quarter and see what works. Like, don't bother.
Yeah.
That's wasted money. Because the answer is nothing more.
Exactly. It's so not.
There are occasional exceptions to that, perhaps, but basically the answer is it won't work. And so diving into that, so that time frame is a big deal.
Yeah.
Where, 3 months is what's acceptable inside of the Silicon Valley approach, or even really a U.S. corporate approach, typically. Where in Japan, time moves geologically. People report half years and years historically. In the U.S., I don't know what an expression of, might be to how long you should wait before you make it or what have you. But in Japan, the general expression is ishi no ue sannen. So until you've sat on the stone for 3 years, you don't know if it's hard or not, or it's the right stone for you. Or I can't give the exact. That's the translation of it.
Yeah.
But getting the right meaning across can be tough sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of, that mindset is still strong. And so when you run into issues in the US, it's like, we'll put something out, it breaks, we'll fix it. And in Japan, which has much more of a hardware-driven manufacturing culture, it's like when you put something out there, it should never break.
Yeah. I remember I was talking to I'm trying to remember exactly what the conversation was. I was talking to my friend from Hakuhodo, actually, and what she was saying is the difference in the market is that in Japan, the product is perfect when it launches. And that the market response is feedback on kind of if you need to develop a new product line or if there's something you can maybe add, but it shouldn't be like a test. Like in other markets, it's very much like, when you put it out, it's like a test to just see if it's going to be a product in the next year or something. And so I think that distinction is really interesting to see.
Well, to that point, if you look at the dominant Japanese companies globally, by market cap, Toyota's number one, industrial, right? Keyence, which is in B2B robots, like Fanuc, they're number two, or at least as of a month or two ago. And Sony's number three. So a lot of hardware is showing up in there. Sony actually has more financial services than you might realize. Right? In the US, it's Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, or Apple, Microsoft. I don't remember what the ranking today is. Right? But they're all big tech.
Yeah.
And you can see kind of the differences between the countries that way. And it's not that Japan doesn't have any SaaS companies, right? They exist. But there are no global meaningful SaaS companies out of Japan. Mercari's tried.
Yeah.
Right? Rakuten's tried a bit. But
so it's interesting that you point that out. And so having your R&D team in the States and then having this kind of the company being almost based here in
we are based here.
Yeah, exactly. How do you kind of manage that? What's your sort of role? Yeah.
Well, a lot of times it's a double negotiation, basically, where both sides think they have the right answer. And both sides are appropriately concerned, right? They're both like, why are they so hung up on this? Would be the Silicon Valley side. And the other side, though, are the ones who talk to the customers. And it's because the customer, it's not, sometimes it's the people, but often it's the customers expect this. Now, if you have a really good Japanese sales team, they're probably going to be setting back higher expectations than what the minimum customer expectation is. But not by, we're not talking off by a factor of 2, we're talking 10%, right? And so working with the team, say, okay, well, let's just do the give and take thing with the customer. Look, we can do this and this, and then meet deadlines that you commit to, right? That's one big one. And then the other is we implemented all of our QA, QC here in Japan. Because it's like once it's gone through our very rigorous checks here, there will be no issues at the customers.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
Where we found when we did it in Silicon Valley and in Europe, it's like okay, it's done, and then the things that would come back would be kind of edge cases, but they weren't like extreme edge cases, But it was very much I tried these 3 variables together, they didn't work, But the cases that had been run in kind of the test environment in Silicon Valley was, we tried each of those cases individually, right? So it's just an interesting difference of mindset.
Yeah, that balance, I imagine it can be tough. I do also see, and that's kind of why I think people often wonder why having a lot of companies will require, or not require, but a lot of companies will push pretty hard for like a native level Japanese speaker or a very fluent Japanese speaker in a sales role or in a customer service role, customer success role. I think it's kind of what you touched on there, where understanding the market that comes with that level of like it's kind of I think what they're really looking for is that understanding of the market, like being able to predict what is going to come of the customer's requests down the line, like rather than you mentioned, rather than just getting that minimum customer expectation, it works in like 80% of cases. They rather say, okay, it works in probably like 110% of cases almost, where it's like, yeah, it's going to cover most of our general customer base and maybe everyone, but just in case we've tested these other things that will be there. And one of the stories that I love, and I think I have talked about it here, is one of my someone I was working with who's ex-Microsoft talks about how Bill Gates would thank Japan for making Windows what it was, because they would get so much, like you said, QC stuff coming from Japan. If they changed like one color green from Microsoft 97 to 98 or whatever, and like if that shade was slightly different, people would be like, okay, well, why did you change this?
Right.
And so yeah, they really were able to make kind of a perfect product. So I think that balance is super important. And so as an American, managing, so that's kind of the balance between the US and Japan. As an American managing a team in Japan, have you had any sort of cultural challenges or anything that you felt was something, maybe a learning curve for coming here? Yeah.
I mean, so it's always, let's see, your own experiences are a model size of one, right? So how much of it was being in Japan?
Yeah, that's fair.
How much of it was me being a nitwit? How much of it was, oh, really, if I thought about that, maybe that wasn't the optimum thing to do? I can't accurately express. I have said before, and I'll say it again, that perhaps the worst leader or manager that I've ever seen was me somewhere from 2003 to 2006 or 7. I was really a disaster. You know, it was obvious to me because the people that I wanted to stay with me and work with me didn't. And people didn't want to work with me. So, okay, let me look at my behaviors. Yeah, and I adjusted a lot of them, studied on how to do this, and I'm pretty good at doing what I do now. Yeah, but certainly at home. I mean, it's always a little embarrassing to look back and go, oh, yeah, I did, yeah, that does sound like me then. Yeah, it's, so, and even now there's sometimes I say things. But one thing that all the companies I've run are consistent, I guess, I don't know if it's with my personality or with how I think companies should be run, probably both. It's that if you make a mistake, get it out there quick. Do not let it fester. Don't put it under the rug. And I'm stealing this from the founder of WePro. But his thing was, you know, bad news takes the elevator. Good news takes the stairs. And I still really believe that. And I tried to demonstrate that to my team as well. Like, there's one day, wasn't too long ago, where I was really tough on one of my best performers in front of everybody for something that was probably a screw up that I'd made. Right. Yeah, I mean, when I went back and thought about it, and so I just wrote everyone in the company. I said, you know, I really did demonstrate the goals and the not the morals, but the culture that I want us to be. And I did this wrong, so I'm really sorry. And I'll do my best not to do it again. I would appreciate your forgiveness. And, you know, this person's worked with me a while, so they were like, I didn't even notice. But one of the other people, which made me feel better, because, you know, sometimes you can build something by making your own head, right? But one of the other people wrote me something, I was like, Jim, I've never seen this before. I'm like, I didn't think I screwed up. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I've never seen a shot show, like, say to everyone he messed up, and, like, well, I'll tell you, plenty of shot shows mess up, you know. And, you know, I have a gigantic ego and a lot of self-confidence, and maybe that just makes it easier for me. Yeah, but I don't know. Seems to me that if there's a problem, it's better to fix it than kind of deny it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny that you mentioned being a bad leader, because I managed a team when I was in the States, and managing a team, it sounds, I think before you become a manager.
Wait, you said a team. You didn't mean your band.
No. I didn't manage my band. I think that's probably for the best as well. But yeah, no. But I managed a team in the States, and I think as before you manage people, it seems like a really easy thing to do. Almost like you're like, okay, yeah, we just have to tell them what to do and get things done. Yeah, exactly. And
I already screwed that one up.
Yeah. I remember after my first year, I had US, and I got like the worst ratings for my interns, it was like kind of heavy, but I could see almost how much it's like so many mistakes I had made, and like really looking on that and kind of like reflecting and being able to use that in the future, I think really helped me even just communicate better. Like overall, one of the big things that I learned was literally like, if you mess up, just tell them. And like, I think the other thing that I really learned was like, I have a tendency to want to make things go as good as they can be. And so like I will be there if something's wrong. I will be there. I will fix it. Like whatever I have to do to get it done. Which as a manager, like again, before I manage people, I was like, that's probably the way to do it. You just got to make sure everything's good. But it's almost not really about like your results at that point. It's really about having your team learn how to be functional without you.
It's interesting that you raise that. I think there's a couple of points to it. One is you're not trusting your team.
Yeah, exactly. They feel it.
And completely, yeah. And it's not only not trusting, but in some ways arguably disrespectful.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Certainly I did that. And I think the second part of that is, you're talking about going for the perfect outcome, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Perfect outcome is an opinion, right? And so you've moved from what could be a very tangible, measurable goal to something that's no longer tangible or measurable and just your opinion, right?
Yeah.
And so that was hard for me to recognize.
I totally know exactly. Because you're like, this is how it should look, and you're like, well, there's no real like. There's like a small variation, and it's your, like you said, it's opinion based. It's not actual factual. But yeah, totally. Yeah, and so again, it goes back to that disrespecting, because then you're not valuing like their opinion essentially. Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that the group's always right either, right? Sometimes often it's, and this is the way I've looked at it as I've gotten a bit older. I need to communicate vision stuff more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I have something stuck in my head that, as the founder, that I'm not getting out with.
That's great.
Right. And so they're like, okay, well, we're going, you said go here. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's roughly the right direction. Yes. And then it's like, all right, well, and how do we work together to kind of figure out where we're going? Yeah. But the other thing I really prize is initiative. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only people that, actually, I don't think they've even been hired recently, but historically, the last person who left in like a month was one after, he'd come in and say, okay, well, what should I do? You're a professional, fill in the blank. What do you think you should do? Well, I don't know. You're the boss. We did not have a very productive relationship. that was, it's like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, bring me a list of stuff you think you should do, and then we'll go through, I'm okay providing a lot of guidance and a lot of hands-on stuff, but, the very high-level question is, it's almost like, what is the meaning of life or something?
Yeah, totally what you mean. And that, I think, also connects kind of into that not giving people that space to fail, because, and like, I think you said it so well, like, it's disrespectful, because, like, if you're hiring people for that initiative, and then you're still there saying, like, this is what needs to happen, it's really limiting that, and you're not giving them that space to kind of learn what that initiative is. And so, yeah, I totally agree. I totally see where you're coming from. Cool. Anything else you want to talk about around maybe managing a team here? Any experiences specifically that you want?
Oh, okay.
It's not too painful.
Yeah, let's see. Let's try to think of some good experiences. Yeah, because we've talked about some painful ones that I think we both share. Yeah, I think one of the really nice things that happens, and I think it's maybe more true in Japan than the U.S., but in Japan, your work is your community. Mm-hmm. Right, and you'll have deep roots. Your family's often connected to it, and so those interpersonal bonds that show up work-wise are different than what you would see in a foreign environment, right? So at large companies, particularly, you see this. It's like, oh, I'm this trading company, or I'm this famous telco, right? And that network of people inside the company, there's friends, there's enemies, there's people they like, don't like, people they go to barbecues or whatever with. But where you have a professional community in the U.S., okay, we're all in startups together. Yeah. In large companies, Japan especially, you don't see that cross-pollination, right? And so when you look and say, okay, well, I want to hire someone from this large Japanese company because they will know everyone at these other 6 large ones that are potential customers. Yeah, you often run into no, actually they don't. And what they've learned is how to effectively get things done or move around that organization. So I think that's one thing. And the other, we may have touched on earlier, was just the time frames.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, beyond that, and I think this ties into the management style as well. There are certain leadership types that don't go over that well here. And in a lot of cases, it's the foreign boss who's in for 2 years who, right, I'll just fix this right now and do everything right that you're doing wrong, and we'll go to the top of the organization and solve it. And, well, maybe. Good luck. I know of about 0 cases where that's happened. Having said that, I have seen some very smart guys, didn't speak any Japanese, but who were good at business, who came over and said, okay, let's go talk to a bunch of our customers and understand why they chose us. And what came out of it was really enlightening. It was, we picked you not because you were the most Japanese of the companies, you're not, but because of the following thing. We liked the way you followed up with us. You were quick in turnaround times and responses, or we like your vision. We think that's a good global vision, and we're that kind of company. And these are hardcore Japanese companies. This isn't like you and I set up here, right? And I think people go down both paths of the I'm successful over here, so I will come and change all of Japan. Have them cancel Golden Week. We've got meetings. There are quotes to that extent that have come out. I had a boss once come during Golden Week, and I'm like, I can't. There are no meetings to be had. It's like, I'm coming. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Not only that, this guy, and I'm from Texas, but a big old Texas guy, boots on, and was sitting in meetings with boots up on a desk. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, we're kind of faux pas max right now. Fortunately, the only people who could meet with us, because it was Golden Week, were other foreigners. So it was, we were bad, but we weren't, banned for life. Yes. So that's certainly, that's a real experience, right? It's one of these, sometimes he made that up. No, that's burned in my mind. And then, but then you have the cases like I mentioned as well, where you go talk to customers and you listen. You don't tell them how great you are. So, well, all right. We understand you have a long list of things to solve. But if you had to pick 3 to start, the first answer is, well, no, all of them. Okay. I understand all, but we have to start somewhere. So if we could get something released in 90 days that fixes 3 things. Oh, in 90 days. Okay. Right. This. So I think sometimes the message that comes across is, here's our list of things we want on your roadmap. And you come back and saying, well, you can't have, you can only have 3 things on the roadmap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that's a useful series of anecdotes or not. But,
that's great. Yeah.
I'll just point out, I'm not wearing boots today.
Not even rain boots.
Not even rain boots.
Type food. Yeah. Great. Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, thank you so much for sharing those. I think that covers most of what I wanted to talk about. I think that if we have a bit of time, it would be nice to talk about parenting in Japan, which I think is a bit of a off-topic thing for us, but it's something that I think is probably more people can relate to, I think, than we realize.
Sure.
And so one of the things, we had collaborated before on a webinar, actually talking about a little bit about DX. Originally, it was about kind of how DX can affect women joining the workforce. That was a big focus. And one of the things that you had mentioned in that talk was about how, and it really left an impact on me, was about how you didn't want to be a weekend-only dad. Yeah. And I think that is such a great sentiment and something that I really kind of take to heart. And I think this isn't a Japan thing. This is an everywhere thing, I'm sure. But having that ability to kind of say, okay, I'm done for today. I'm going to go spend time with my family. I'm going to go cook dinner, or whatever it is. I don't cook. I don't want to make it sound like I do, but I know that was what you had said in the webinar. I wish I could cook. There's nothing wrong, but I didn't want to give the wrong idea. I do. But
I was going to come over for dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
So disappointed.
I'm so sad. I can make cereal. So
it's okay. We're good at can't cook.
But yeah. So that, like I said, it really was impactful for me, and so I kind of wanted to ask you, what are some of those things that you've implemented in your life to kind of help you spend more time there?